So this week was a week of first for me, and one of the first was this was my first Todd Haynes film experience in May, December. And what a weird film to start my kind of journey with Todd Haynes. So, May, December, for those who do not know what this film is about, it released on Netflix a week ago. May, December follows the characters of Julianne Moore, Charles Melton of Riverdale, and Natalie Portman, an actress in this movie. And what it is we have this relationship between a 35-year-old woman and a 13-year-old kid. It gets discovered in the 1990s. She goes to jail. When she gets out, these two characters marry, and thus Natalie Portman, who's playing an actress in this film, she comes digging around to this city because she's now making a film about this woman's life and how she believes that she has been unfairly treated in her public perception. And that's what May December is about. And it's far more complicated than what I am describing because, on the basis of this film, May December is essentially a straightforward story. It is a story about true narcissists who are destroying this person's life who basically stopped developing at the age of 13. It is a story about the abuse and trauma that he has suffered at the hands of not only Julianne Moore's character, the original Predator, but also this new Predator in Natalie Portman's character coming to pry and exploitating his abuse and trauma in film. And this film is very much aware of the current landscape of Hollywood in the films and stories we choose to tell. I found it absolutely fascinating that May December was released by Netflix, a studio that also made the Jeffrey Dahmer TV show, a studio that has had much complaints about their exploitation of basically serial killers or terrible people and how they portray their victims and what that means and says about society. So I find it just absolutely fascinating that Todd Haynes was able to make this story with Netflix. And that's the aspect of this movie that I want to talk about more than my actual positive or negative thoughts about May December, because I'll be fully honest, I was really mixed on May December. There are elements like the Charles Melton performance, which I'm sure you've heard at this point. It's a really harrowing, it's a really powerfully good performance from Charles Melton as this 35-year-old man who has the developmental capacity of what feels like a 13-year-old boy, despite the fact that he now has like an 18-year-old son and daughter. So that's a really complicated aspect of this movie that Melton brings and hits out of the park. I think he is sensational in May, December. It's the other elements around him that I found complicated, and they're complicated in good ways and bad ways. Todd Haynes is a very funny director in this story, and thus May December at times has really strong comedic beats. Some of them really land. I think this is one of the most knockout endings of a film that I've seen recently. The ending was so incredibly funny in just a twisted, disturbing, creepy way that just totally worked for me. It really reminded me of Tar from last year. I think those two share a lot in similarities with how they end and choose to end their films. And then there's other moments of this film that I found myself with the humor not really connecting. And again, this is Todd Haynes having full control of this movie, and it's just that it didn't always work. He is clearly making fun of melodramas and the type of schlock that Hollywood is producing with stories like this. However, in poking fun and really using melodramatic tendencies of this movie as kind of a way to lampoon it, I actually found that this film then felt melodramatic in ways that I didn't appreciate it. And I found this largely in the Natalie Portman performance, which I think is just out there. And she is certainly making a choice, and I respect the choice. I didn't connect with this choice at all. I think this is just a bizarre performance from Natalie Portman. And the writer of May December is a casting director, and they do use this element of Natalie Portman, which is kind of this raging debate of, is Natalie Portman a good actress? Heads up, she's a great actress. It's just that I always find her presentation kind of weird at times, and this one is no exception. And it is playing with that perception. Natalie Portman is very clearly in on the joke of it. Because in this movie, and I think it's one of the funnier choices that May December makes, the film that Natalie Portman's character is making in the film is, you kind of at first you get this feeling that she's this really prestigious, beloved actor, and those misconceptions are really quickly taken away in the movie. We find out that she's essentially working on this Grey's Anatomy type TV show. She is really, it feels like a B or C list actress trying to make a name for herself and really like be in a class above than what she is really is, but she is of limited talent. There's this really funny scene where she is at the high school kind of teaching the next generation of actors, and she's talking about sex and intimacy and filming sex scenes to a bunch of kids, and it's incredibly funny because she comes off as so knowing about this, and yet it's obviously clear that the kids are fantasizing and she doesn't quite understand it, and she's also just like, it's just this incredible moment in the film that really just shows the disconnect between the art that she thinks she's making versus the art that she is making, and why people are responding to that art. It's a really funny scene, and there are moments throughout May December that I found that to really work. And then there's other aspects of this movie where it does really borrow on the melodramatic tendencies. The score of this movie is very loud, it's very over the top, and in some scenes it plays really well, and in other scenes I just found it quite distracting, as is the writing. There are some scenes where I think the interaction between characters, there are some scenes where I believe the interaction between characters works so well and it brings so much to all of these performances. And there's other scenes where I just found it to be so overstated, very much again of that melodramatic tendency that Todd Haynes is poking fun at. But again, in poking fun at the melodramatic, I found him to just slip into melodramatic. And these characters start feeling more like writing exercises at times for Todd Haynes than real people. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that is what Todd Haynes is going for in May December, because there are other aspects of this movie where, again, you can really feel the movie making seams of this movie at full effect. And then there are other times where I connected with this film emotionally, and those are largely the Charles Melton aspects of this movie. And when we find out kind of the trauma that he's going through, the stunted development that he is, when this film really focuses on him, the victim, I think this film really works, but the film never really focuses in on the victim. And that's purposeful because this character that Charles Melton is playing doesn't really have autonomy to himself. He isn't really getting to decide. He doesn't really have a voice. Everyone is basically exploiting him his entire life. And thus the film, in a way, is exploiting him his entire life. I just didn't fully respond to it. And I think it takes really big swings and it is trying to do something. And like I said, at times it hit it, and at other times it really just didn't hit it for me at all. Thus, like I said, I'm really overall mixed on it. I'm going 2.5 out of 4 stars for May December. And if you like this review, please consider subscribing to my channel. By the end of 2024, I really would like to hit 500 followers. That would be more than double what I started off this year with. So I'd really, just like I said, if you're liking these videos, please like and subscribe. It means the world to me that you're all supporting me and watching these videos and watching me talk about a movie. So that's thrilling to me. So thank you all so much for being here. And I'll see you next time for my next review coming up soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.